is off. So you can imagine all the noises that were coming into the rooms. It was very funny. It's something to.
All right, I'm happy to introduce the next speaker, Lee Dayport. So he's a director, Smart Communities for US. Where he leads the US Ignite Communities program with more than 50 communities. Working with the support from the NSF, Lee served as principal investigator for Project Overcome, testing rapid deployment of advanced wireless to connected and unconnected. See it?
Yeah.
So, great. So I'll hand over to Lee for.
Thank you. As they pull my slide up, I'm just gonna get right into it. I feel like it's Friday and would like to do something quicker. I'm gonna skip through most of my notes. If you're thinking that I look like a colleague of mine, and maybe you may know, Glenn Reichert, got several patents in the Hall of Fame. I'm not him. If you think that it's the same US Ignite that runs the platform for advanced wireless research, we've got 4 test beds at $100 million, so there's a lot of active rural and drones. I'm not a wireless engineer, so we're going to take those questions off the table too. For me, US Ignite helps communities test and scale solutions and tech that improve the quality of life of connectivity, data, and digital skills. Today, I'm going to tell a story about Cleveland, so we can talk about the test bed for all 3. Historic research, community voice, technical design, and policy alignment. Again, if you're thinking of engineering, none of those words came out of my mouth. Quick show of hands, who here is from Cleveland? What's your,
They may be virtual.
Who's heard of Cleveland?
So we're on the same page, good. Nobody knows something.
I'm not going to talk a lot about other things. I will say I'm going to talk a little about fixed wireless, and so we have that in contrast with earlier talks. I want to frame the challenge very quickly. Cleveland, I think, is a great job. It shows severity of problem, commitment to a program, and a viable solution. As you guys have seen and people talk about, I will not go to great length about it. Broadband access does equity or equality, both. Without it, students fall behind, workers are excluded, families miss telehealth. I think that's what I covered. Why Cleveland? Do we talk about it? It's because when we started talking about Cleveland, I'll go back to some of this. Cleveland, just even 5 years ago, was ranked as the least connected large city in the United States. 32% of households lacked broadband. To be completely honest, the story of Cleveland starts connected way back a long time ago. Another federal funding program with the same organization, NTIA. We talked a lot about BEAD today. This is before that, top the Broadband Technology Opportunity Program. I worked at a nonprofit that received about $50 billion, $120 million project with the wireless multiple dwelling units, households. Another one that was in Cleveland called One Community. If you've heard of Levgonic, ASU, or the Arizona State University CIO, or Angela Sieber, who runs the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. This was the home for that organization. Several people came out of my organization, several people came out of that one. A lot of good history in Cleveland. And so they've been at it for a long time. One thing I want to talk about just briefly is the case study that we picked, which is Lexington Village. And so to understand how we decided how I'm going to talk about Cleveland today, again, step 1, map conditions, engage residents, define barriers. Again, I go to policy school, I do not talk about engineering. When we start, if also think about, if you've not heard of the concept of digital redlining, who here has not heard about digital redlining? And so basically on the back of financial redlining or bank redlining that happened with federal housing, certain communities lack access to the internet and infrastructure. And so it's a policy that's basically inherent to our existence in the United States. Digital redlining, data revealed overlap with race, poverty, and poor service. All right, so community conditions and resident voice. So we started talking about, as many people do, community advocates start really thinking about layered services. In Cleveland, they have modified this as a strivers, seniors, and students category. Top barriers for lack of adoption, lost skills gap, and mistrust. Again, nothing surprising here today. What Digital T did, which is a nonprofit wireless internet service provider, a nonprofit WIS, If you haven't heard that term, imagine that. They bundled services, devices, and training at $17. So it's connectivity in the home, it's a device, and it's a tech support for the person for their lifetime and for the device for 1 year at $17. It's a pretty good deal. Shifted the focus from connection to capability. Right, so from proof to pilot with these conditions defined, we know the need, we know that what the conditions were right for a pilot like this. They look to dramatically expand some relatively new adaptations in next gen fixed wireless and prove out a model. So this is where does anybody in the building work for National Science Foundation? Who's heard of the National Science Foundation? No, they're all the same one. And so with support from US Ignite, the National Science Foundation, this is funding through cooperative agreement 2044448. For them, you have to say those things. We ran a challenge in 2021 to find 7 use cases to have rapid deployment of advanced wireless to isolate and support the unconnected populations. In that pilot, we looked at 3 housing developments, communities here. Action fixed wireless, CBRS. We looked at commercial grade LTE, off the shelf, and private LTE. And so we again wanted to see how far would $300,000 get in different settings with different technologies. This was in preparation for feed, and we wrote playbooks about it. The reason that Lexington Village is on the board is because, and if you've ever written or submitted a federal grant application, we looked at 30 100-page applications. I pulled this one off the pile. You could tell, not 37%, within a minute of reading it, it was the best one. It was just hands down the best application we saw. What I liked about it was this particular Lexington Village, where they proposed a solution, 47% disconnected, 90% African American, greater than 50% under $20,000 income. So the perfect mix of things we wanted to do to increase, could we move the needle on adoption? 225 households, partners, obviously the Howler was involved, Case Western, Natural Health, Cleveland Clinic, libraries, and the reason there's a picture of a church is there is because a lot of big institutions got involved with setup and design of the project. If you haven't ever written a federal proposal before, I encourage you at this point to make sure you have your project ready, your partners ready before the grant becomes available. Because once you have that month clock ticking, it's really, really hard to get anything done, right? So get your projects ready, your partners ready before you. So the pilot deployed social infrastructure as well. I will say also that what we think we learned about this was we asked a lot of people pre and post over the course of the project. Access alone is not determined adoption, right? Access alone is not determined adoption. Connection alone is limited impact. You saw people using WhatsApp, using social media, watching some YouTube videos, right? Because then we expected to increase that access would increase that. It was rarely used for education, jobs, or healthcare. We know this because we asked everybody. Support outperforms connection in all forms. Devices, training, and navigators did equate to higher adoption. The core insight here was that trust, the valid indicator for that was when trust was engaged, when people were there that looked and acted and behaved like they were neighbors and friends, we increased adoption across the board. I wanted to circle back to rural electrification for just 2 seconds, right? It was not, I think it's important to note that wires alone did not change life on farms, right? It was the appliances, the light bulbs, the refrigerators that did. It was the object that required the thing that happened to that place. In that way, the value creation is the tools, the support, and the trust that comes with the internet that matters. People don't get on the internet because it exists, because they want something. That's why they get on. It has to become indispensable. And so we all know it is. Many of you in this room have never gone a day without the internet. Well, it depends on, at least not maybe not the front row, a few rows. The back rows, maybe you've never gone without the internet. So like just imagine what it would be like to be without the internet. Right, so here we go. 7 slams, just kidding, more than that. Pilot success in Cleveland was a living lab for scale. Living labs are great for proving a lot of things. So we looked at evaluation methods. We asked 1,000 people what they thought about it, longitudinal surveys and tracking. We wrote a lot of playbooks, we published them, we got a lot of stuff written into federal legislation. It became a data set for linking design with outcomes. All these pictures are real pictures, obviously, I didn't add an AI for this stuff. Digital key leverage connection to the last mile for you, or for those of you who do have PhDs, layer of TBR LTE, millimeter wave, rooftop access points, hallway access points and MDUs. I think the biggest thing to translate here is that application of real science is led in, we currently really like a provider called Tirana. You have worked with them or have heard of them before. They had, what they did, they took a really noisy radio frequency environment, bouncing signals off and around Cleveland, to create an aerial fiberglass connection. Distributed massive MIMOs on both ends, continuous multi-path management. They gained about 40 dBs, asynchronous interference cancellation. That's the extent of the fancy word I'm going to use, so don't ask any questions about that. But I think it's important to note that basically they use computers on both ends to re-aggregate all the signals into making it useful, and so it's a great dense urban environment solution. Next gen fixed wireless. From my point of connected communities, what was that? All right, so this is great, no questions, fantastic. All right, trust-based engagement. Here, I think it's important just to take away, you'll get these slides afterwards. Ambassadors, so we had supported installs, jobs, bills, telehealth. This is the opposite. This is the kind of continuation of what we think about. Like you call 911, it is how fast can you get your point across to a person who can dispatch a resource. You call a 311 or a 211 in the United States, that is someone who is choosing to ask you questions to determine if something else is happening to you, right? You're just saying, I don't know where to eat, I need a place to eat tonight or sleep tonight. They start asking you questions about what's your family like, what's your home like, is there abuse in the home, do you have access to tools, do you have a support network? If you call and I say to you, your house is on fire, there is no interaction, right? And so they do that because you trust the person on the phone. This is Rolando, who now works out of Arizona, but at the time the CTO had built networks and adoption networks in Bolivia and was a fantastic individual to have. We watched him do a lot of this face-to-face work. 4 parts of a trust engagement model that they wrote about in the playbook is constant trust through outreach, ambassadors that are youth that are knocking on doors, look like neighbors, and act like them and talk like they. You want people to ask and use the same language and the same and partners, schools, libraries, and health systems that really make it all work. All right, so here we get into it. I think I should skip the slides on. We know that after project 87% did report reliable service increases, 9% increases in speed in the home. They did, like I mentioned, have increased use of jobs, education, and health. It did give the city confidence to scale with some accountability. The funding trajectory here was, yes, they had some success earlier. NSF then did support Richmond Futures. They then proceeded to use that use case to go right to the couple of large foundations, Meyer and Mendelssohn Foundation in Cleveland. They received $20 million in financial support to build a back office operation. They then received $20 million in federal money and state money, another $10 million. And I say this because, thank you. I say this because it's without a government entity or a third party, it is very difficult to connect people who cannot pay the bills, right? It's just a standard access. If you're only looking at incumbents who expect to make profit, they will make profit, that's guaranteed. We will leave people on the market. The market does not autocorrect for that. And so it is really great to get capital expenditures covered by someone who can help you pay for it. And it is a responsibility, in my mind, of other entities, outside entities to support that. They just received last week $500,000 in more Google Fiber donations and hardware donations, but a ton of money finding them to contract to deliver services. They did align with, I think alignment's really important. They align with your federal and Ohio digital equity plans. I think it's important to be able to show and document what we call an DC top cover. is an authority helping you to designate what's important and how you are important. So you're enabled to do large things like contracts and connect people. I think the research questions here are, we tend to really look at nonprofit versus commercial models, governance and sustainability. The results in the data and civic energy are that quantitatively, we got 100,000 homes covered as of this month in that town. 6,000 households are connected in that town as of this month. $3 million in annual family savings per year. 15,000 trainings delivered. 12,000 unique trainees, residents trained, and outcomes, as I talked about earlier, these are all pictures of Cleveland. Each connection milestone was celebrated. I think it's really important to celebrate these contacts. 6,000 households, they had a community event, food, bands, parade, they brought 6,000 clients on stage. Like, you have to do these things, make big milestones, little milestones. Labor Day parade, Driven to Connect is a film that got admitted to the Cleveland Film Festival. So they had local people writing about it, talking about it. And it has become a point of civic identity and pride. It is now no longer the least connected, it is one of the most connected large cities, right? Because it works. I would say it's a model that is replicable. I invite you to adapt in your own community. If you thought, wow, so many good ideas, what shall I do about that? I think technical hybrid design, exploring emerging tech. I think that organizational, nonprofit, independent, smaller ISP innovation is something that we really think is a lot of source material for policy alignment across footprints. Research gaps to the adoption metrics, longitudinal impacts, replicability. I'd like you to help us join and evaluate and replicate and adapt our surveys, and were studied by Rutgers University, was mentioned earlier, as community broadband models. Lastly, just in case you didn't have time to take a picture or anything, these are all the summary recommendations. I will not cover them. Just because. So, that's it. All you. I don't want any questions. Find you though at happy hour. There's one question.
There's a question, yeah. Go ahead. Any question? Yeah.
Anyone?
I think.
I would love to see
Wait.
something in writing I would love to see something in writing so I could think about this and share with people and talk about how to adapt it. I'm done.
Love to see something in writing about it.
I would love to see something in writing to share with other people. You
Yeah.
have something.
I will do. Yes,
Thank you.
Carl Guadino has done a great job of writing about this Toronto rollout. Toronto is not just restricted to Cleveland, they've also got rollouts in Troy. We're working with Toronto here in Syracuse. We've got a meeting required with several in Syracuse to operate with City of Syracuse. I think there are a handful of other cities. They do a really good job of white papering. I wouldn't just think it's corporate gobbledygook. I would think that there's actually some really good stuff out there. We also write about digital seed growth on US Ignite's website. US Ignite, again, a high-tech nonprofit. We are 80% federally funded, about 25 of us. We operate smart bases installations, we operate the advanced wireless research test beds, and my unit coaches CTOs and CIOs of municipalities through the process of deploying technology to meet really challenging needs. So check our website, US Ignite, and I will absolutely send you stuff if you want to drop your name to me.
That's great. Is this part of the Overcome project also? Yeah.
They were a winner of one of the 7 awardees for.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
That's great. Thanks. Right. We'll have Purva, please get ready for the next talk. Good job. Glad to see the call to action,
Thankfully, I have a little ADD that keeps me moving.